Alright guys, before we continue, I wanted to mention something I forgot to say in the last video, and that is that you got several options when it comes to the way you play the game. First of all, of course, you got your average play thing, which will play the thing in your game, viewport. You also can play as a standalone. In other words, it will kind of create this, well, basically compile the game for you and play it from the beginning. Just Alt F4 out of that, and then of course you have your simulate, which allows you to simulate stuff while still editing things, right? You can move things, and when you stop, it will go back to wherever it is, to the original thing. Pressing F11 will also make this bigger, so you could perhaps play this in a little bit much better situation. Of course, Alt S is the stuff that simulates, and you press it again. Press Escape to stop simulating. Alt P would play it, and then Escape will actually exit from it. Also, it is possible for you to possess stuff. Now, the problem, of course, here is that we don't have our game mode. If when I play right now, I'm not really going to even spawn. Okay, even if I possess this, currently nothing is happening. Of course, I can eject and take a look at what I've got. Currently, I have nothing. So I'm going to stop here and simply change this back to, game mode, regular game mode, which would be a game mode base. And we're going to play. And now I should be able to move throughout. And if I eject, Shift F1, of course, I believe the shortcut was, F8, you'll see that we're playing as a sphere. Okay, Escape to stop this. Now let's go ahead and load back our minimal default. You'll notice something very interesting here, and that is in the world settings, we're currently in game mode to none, even though we set the other game mode in the other level. That's because settings here are on a world-to-world basis. If you really want to make this, global, you want to have to go here and simply change this to our game mode, which is the example game mode, and now it will set up everything in every level. If I play now, I should possess this, and for some reason this does not update. Let me just see if this was indeed changed. My changes have been saved. Yeah, perhaps I need to restart or reload the level. So let's go back and see now. No. For some screwed up reason, this does not update, so you're going to have to do this manually. But of course, there is our settings. Let's see. Why did it not update? This should update. Definitely should update, but maybe I need to restart the engine for this to apply. Now, here's the interesting bit. We're going to talk about blueprints and generally mostly about data types in this video, right? We're going to talk about data types and how we can manage data. We're not going to cover we're not going to cover everything, but we're going to cover a lot. So this could be about a half an hour, 40-minute video. So let's dive back into our temp, and you'll see that all our containers for logic are actually available right here. So the question is, if we were to, let's say, create, let's say we want to define, I don't know, a loot table, right? Let's say we want to make some items. So I would probably want to do that in the game mode because I don't want the players to be able to add, their own items to my item pool. So I'm going to open up the game mode here, and you will see that we currently have nothing. It's because currently this is only a data blueprint. It doesn't do much. Now let's take a look at what we have here. We've got our tick enabled, and the tick interval. In other words, how often will this thing update, or in other words, send execution requests, and when is it going to happen? Currently, as you can see, we're doing our calculations before the physics are ran, which is generally what you want in a game mode. Of course, depending on the logic, you might want to have it executed later, depending on the blueprint itself. Of course, you can execute during physics, after the physics has been calculated, and of course, after the whole update, so the last thing on the queue. Generally speaking, for game mode, you want to do this pre-physics so that everything is being set properly. Now, I'm going to open the full blueprint editor, and of course, like before, you'll notice that there is pretty much nothing here in the viewport, because that's what you want. Now, let's create some variables. As you can see on the left-hand side here, I've got my blueprint. I can create a bunch of stuff, such as macros, graphs, event dispatchers. We're going to go over these later. What I want to do now is simply create some variables that which we can utilize. So I'm going to just click a bunch of these buttons here. I don't know what we're going to do with these. So first of all, we need to check the variable type. Currently, I'm going to say, well, I want a integer. Well, no, not an integer. Let's just say I want an actor or an object. Or let's just say actor. I want an actor EX. So we're going to create a variable of type actor EX, which we have actually created. I'm going to click this here. And this is going to be simply our, I don't know, sword. Okay. Then we need another one. So I probably should just duplicate these. So I should delete this one. I should delete all of these. Crap, I got to do it one by one. So I'm going to duplicate this a couple of times. Well, whoa. Don't go out. So we got a sword. We have clubs, and we have mace. Well, mace and a club is the same thing. Spear. Okay. So currently we have that. Now we need to figure out, we also need some variables for damage, yeah? That's, I suppose that's fairly correct, isn't it? So I need another variable here. It's going to be of type integer, and it's going to deal some damage. This is going to be my damage. That's of course assuming I want to have, you know, an integer-based damage, although float will be a much better representation. Notice, by the way, that you can modify the access for these. Currently, they're private. As you can see, is not public right now and will only be editable on an instance of this blueprint. So in other words, only editable inside here. If you want to be able to edit this later down the line in another blueprint, you would have to click this to make them public. But as of now, we're just going to keep it like that. And of course, we've got others. For example, another variable for armor. Well, let's just say armor is going to be an integer, because why not? And let's just say that something is, what we got? Swords, clubs, spears, damage, armor. Well, we need, for example, stuff like ranged weapons. So let's just say bow, which should be an actor, of course. Actor EX. Then we need, let's just say that that's enough. All right, we got damage. Well, of course, we need some kind of armor. So let's just say plate. We need a plate. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to say this is plate. And then perhaps we need something else, such as maybe if an item is equipable. So I'm going to create another variable here. And I can say that it's a Boolean because, you know, it's either equipable or not equipable. Is equipable. Now, obviously, this is not the best way to do this thing. I'm simply, you know, creating an example here. So currently, you've got quite a lot of variables, and obviously, you could work with that, and you can set some tooltips or even set up some categories. So let's just say you want your club, your sword to be in the category weapons, and this would be in the category weapons. Maybe I should have done this before duplicating this, and here weapons. Or we could name this melee and this could be ranged or whatever, but let's just add this to weapons as well. And then we would be like, would have armor, etc. So you could organize this, and generally, yeah, you could make do with whatever it is you have here right now. But there are better ways. Of course, any variable can have any type as long as it's you know, defined. It could have a text. Let's say actually, yeah, we need a name for our object. So we could say that this is a name for the weapon in this case. So the difference between text and string is that one is actually localizable, the other one is a text. So usually speaking, you would want to go with string because that's what we're going to be inputting. Of course, we could create a text variable. Just an example here, there's the text variable, and it's going to be type text. If you grab this, by the way, you can get and set these by holding down Control. That's how you get it, and Alt will actually set it. So as you can see here, we can toString. There you go. You can convert text to string, and of course vice versa. Now we're not going to go over the library just yet because it's a fascinating story here. But for now, we're just going to keep it as it is. Very simple. We got damage, armor, plate, is equipable, name, text, default, and of course we've got the weapon stack here. Currently, this is not a very efficient way of working because I got quite a lot of stuff that I don't really need. So let's go ahead and create something that will help us along the way. If I go ahead into my content and I can create something far more usable, and this would be in the miscellaneous, and I will say that it's going to be a data table. Actually, no, before that, we should create a structure. There we go. We got a structure. Weapons. Oh, no. Well, yeah, weapons. So let's just say my structure is named weapons. I'm going to double click this. Now, what is a structure? A structure is basically a combination of things that you may or may not require. All right. The cool thing is that it is always kind of, you can have as many as you want, but they have to be unique. You can't have the same type. So let's just say, I'm going to say, all right, let's just call this, what exactly did we have? I already forgot. We had like a mace, or was it clubs? All right, sword obviously is the first one. Then would be, we would have a club, and then we would have a spear. And then we would have a bow. And what the hell, might as well have a flail as well. So these are our weapons. They're all, of course, of type EX actor, right? There we go. EX actor. Okay. Currently, of course, we can't edit any of this because we don't have any EX actors, and even if we did, it's not allowed to do this here. So how would this impact the way we perform? So let's just save this and see what we get. Go back into our game mode, and let's just say, I'm simply going to type weapons and see what pops up. Oh, we have a weapons variable. How cool is that? Notice, by the way, that I don't have it in this setup here, but I can still call on it, and I can grab a particular thing from it, right? Like a bow or whatever. Of course, there's another option. I could simply add the variable on its own, but the cool bit is this is the bow that is available over here. It is actually not the ones I've set up. Okay, so how do we perform this? We simply need to grab a variable and call this of type, making sure it's of type weapons. There's our structure that we just created. Now, if I go ahead and grab my weapons variable or structure, I could go ahead and simply get this, and I could maybe split the structure pane. And now you can see I've got my weapons variable: sword, club, spear, bow, flail. They're all of the appropriate type. In other words, they're all actor EXs. And of course, I can, for example, instead of splitting them up, I can collapse the nodes. Oops. No, not collapse the nodes, my bad. I could actually, where's my thing here? Oh yeah, I have to click on the pen, my bad. Recombine structures. I could, for example, break this. As you can see, it's even available over here. I can break this up, and it will actually output whichever I need. If I desire to grab whatever it is I want to work with. So as you can see, the structure is pretty cool on its own, but there are some other things available to us. Let's go ahead and create a a data sheet, data table. Now, data tables. Notice, by the way, that it's going to take the structure of the weapons. So we might need to add some other things to our data table, right? We don't want to have just the weapons. We want to have armor, etc. So we will rename this. I'm going to call this items. This is going to be our item pool table, right? This is going to be the pool of items that we're going to be using. I'm going to double click right now, and I'm going to perform some extra stuff. So currently we have armor, damage, plate. So we need all of these things. So this is going to be another variable here. It's going to be called armor. And we're going to need a new variable as well. It's going to be called damage. And obviously in this scenario, anything that provides armor must also provide a damage. But we also have plate, which would be our armor in terms of items. In fact, we actually probably need an item modifier. But whatever. And of course, we need a reference to this, so it's going to be an item ID. If I click on it, of course, item ID. Let's go ahead and do this now. The plate is an actor, the armor is an integer, the flail is an actor, the item ID is also an integer, the armor, the damage. We have damage anywhere here? No, we don't. So we need some damage as well. Damage, and this is going to be a float. Now I think that's enough, and of course we need an is equipable, which would be our boolean. I'm going to say is equipable, and it's going to be a boolean. Now currently we have quite a hefty list of stuff that, you know, it's quite a lot. So I'm going to save this. Let's see if this thing has been updated. Split structure pin. Yes, we've got everything, and even it's color coded to the data types that we'll be using. As you can see, we've got integers, floats, booleans, actors, right? Everything is in order as it should be. I'm going to recombine this, and I'm going to go ahead and simply create a data sheet. So if I go ahead and go into my miscellaneous and use my data table, which is, by the way, you can import it from Excel, right? You could do this in Excel, but whatever. So I'm going to use items as my structure. I'm going to say this is my loot table. So this is where my loot is going to be stored. And as you can see, I've got a sword, club, spears, item ID, damage, and equipable. Of course, this is not the best situation. Maybe I should have had my item ID at the very top, because of course I should. There we go. Item ID, item ID, item ID, and one more time, and one more time, and one more time. So my current item ID is at the top. Save it. As you can see, it's at the top right now. And we've got some stuff. So we could actually add a bunch of things. So I'm going to click the plus button to add a few rows. And let's just say, obviously this is not ideal, because this should be like a definition if it's a sword or whatever. This is, I hope you just understand what I'm doing right now. This is not what I would be doing in general. This is not how you define a loot table, right? Because obviously not everything is a sword. Okay, so this could be probably a true or false, like whatever. Basically have a sword, a couple, spear, or you can even have like a drop down of types. And that's actually a very cool thing here as well, because you can have an enumeration. Currently, as you can see, we've got a sword, club, spear, bow, flail, and that's a pain in the ass, isn't it, to define? Well, that's where enumerators come in. You could actually use some enumerators to sort of, control this configuration here. As you can see, currently it's of type whatever. So let's go ahead and just do that. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to create a new enumerator. If I can find the damn thing, where is it? No, it's not here. It's not here. What about blueprints? Should be an enumerator. Enumeration. There it is. So let's just say that these are my weapon types. Now, what an enumeration is essentially a list of stuff that has names. Okay, you basically have integers from 0 to however many, and each integer is corresponds to a particular string entry. So it's kind of like giving names to numbers. So I'm going to say new, and this would be let's just say this could be a sword, right? And description would be melee weapon. I'm going to just copy this so that I don't have to write this every time. Sword, we've got club, it's a melee weapon. For some reason tab does not work too well on this. New one, this is going to be, oh, I don't know, this is going to be, what was it? Oh yeah, spear, melee weapon. Well, that's debatable, of course. You got a flail. Well, I think it was a bow first. Bow. This could be ranged weapons. Ranged weapon. Right, and you create a new one, and this would be, for example, our flail. And we would have another melee weapon. So as you can see, and you can have a description, for example, here with an advanced stuff, but basically what you're going to say that this is our weapon list. Save this stuff, and let's take a look at the loot table now. There's nothing here because currently we need to modify our structure. So let's remove some of these. We don't want the sword, the club, the spear, the bow, and the flail. We don't want these. We need a new variable, which is going to be a little bit higher on the chart here, just somewhere over for the armor, I suppose. Okay. And the armor, of course, needs to go below the plate because these are just stats and this is just an item. And I'm going to say that these are my weapons. And here I should have my enumerator, which would be of type, what was the name of it? Weapon types. Weapon types. So this is our enumerator of type weapons. I'm gonna save this, and we should take a look at the thing. And now we've got our swords. And if we take a look here, we've got a drop down. So let's just say my item ID is 0 here, and it's 0, 1 here, and it's 2, and it's this one, it's 3. And of course, I need to perhaps rename this. Here in the row name, I'm going to say that this is, I don't know, Sword of Doom. Obviously, you can reverse the roles where your row is simply, like, you could have a bunch of these, like, for example, Sword of Doom, Sword of Destruction, Sword of Fate, Sword of whatever, and then you can have them all the way here, but that's not a very effective way of doing stuff, in my opinion. So let's just say that Sword of Doom has something. Currently, of course, you can't have spaces, so Sword of Doom, Flail of Destruction, because of course it has to be Flail of Destruction. Let's just say Bow of Harmony. Okay. Another one would be, I don't know, what do we have? Club of Bashing. Some ridiculous stuff here, man. Now we need some more of these entries. Where we go? Here it is, and this row would be called Spear of course, what else but Destiny. We got Spear of Destiny. And actually, we should not forget to make these, to give them item IDs, because maybe we need that, and we might need that in the future, aka Futurum. Let's keep this nice and organized. So I'm going to make this of here an O, a capital O, and this is going to be a capital O, and this is going to be a capital O. Unfortunately, unlike Excel, you cannot actually modify these in one fell swoop. So you're gonna have to do this by hand. And then what do we have again? We had plate, which would be our plate. Oh no, plate is actually crap. I forgot to put the plate. God damn it. Right, let's just say that these items come with the armor already. Okay? Let's just say they come with the armor already. Whatever it is we have, maybe we have several different models for armor. I'm going to delete this entry here. And I believe we have an instance of everything. Sword, flail, bow. Why did it not get updated? God damn it, boy. Of Doom. What's wrong with you, man? Of Doom. Save. Oh, what a pain in the ass, man. All right, whatever. Doesn't want to do it for me. Whatever. So, how is this useful? Well, here we currently can modify 5 items that we have created. Sword of Doom, Flail of Destruction, Bow of Harmony, Club of Bashing, and Spear of Destiny. They all have different setups. So, Sword of Doom, of course, is a sword. Does it have a plate? Well, here we don't actually have a setup here because we don't have any actors of type plate. In other words, our type actor EX actually does not exist yet. We simply have it usable. So that's not of use. But what kind of armor does it give? Let's say it gives us 10 armor. And it deals 50 damage. Okay? And it is equipable. Next, we've got the Flail of Destruction, and this would be most certainly be a flail. Obviously, you can have thousands of flails, right? And it's going to have a particular item ID. You're going to have your armor. The flail will give less armor because it's destruction damage based. So it's going to deal more damage, but it's going to have less armor, and it's going to be, of course, equipable. Then we're going to go to Bow of Harmony. This should be a bow. And of course, it should have the least amount of armor, which would be 0, but it'll deal a fairly standard amount of damage because, of course, it's ranged. So it's going to deal something like I don't know, 55 damage. Maybe depends, of course, attack speed. You can have attack speed, penetration, armor penetration, all that jazz can be all the way over here. Of course, using enumerators if you want to. Then we have Club of Bashing, of course, a very slow attack speed weapon. So we could say that it gives you quite a lot of armor, such as 30 armor, and then it deals 75.8 damage, because we have to utilize, of course, the floating point that we've kind of set up here for our damage output, and is equipable. And of course, Spear of Destiny gives you 1000 armor, deals a lot of damage, and of course is not equipable because it will be ridiculous. Oh, not equipable, my bad. A Bow of Harmony should be equipable. So as you can see, we just set up a very rudimentary, very high-level overview of how would, let's say, a loot table operate. In other words, you got all that stuff here, and then depending on what you want to do with it, you could access it over here, right, and grab your data and simply work with it. You don't need these anymore. You don't need your weapons variable. So if you sort of split the structure pane, you can see that now we have our weapons variable, plate, all that jazz. So as you can see, it's pretty cool that you can create things of this type. I believe it's possible to create a variable of, well, we could use this loot table in this game if we just created like this. It would be of type loot table. No. Items? Sorry, data? What was it? Data table? There we go. As you can see, we got a category row handle, and it's just a whole data table here. And let's just say these are our, these are, where do we go? These are our item list. This is our item list. And now we have an item list, which could have, after we compile, we could assign it the loot table. And now whenever we grab it, get it, we should have access to all of it. Now, if I split this, there's nothing to happen because it actually is of type loot table, so you're going to need to run some operations to get whatever it is you need. So let's just say get sorry, loot table, loot, Jesus, what was it, data table. So as you can see, get table, data table row names, and then you can you know, after that you can actually go ahead and play with whatever it is you have. Now here's the interesting bit. Right now we've only been using single stuff, but you'll notice that the output here is a little bit different than, you know, the rest of the things, because the array of names here that you see, an array, if you remember from the abstract programming videos, should be ringing a bell here, is a combination of values which, you know, have a particular association with them. So you can have, like, say 10 items, and these 10 items will be either unique or the same, but they have to be represented in some way or fashion. The cool bit here is that, let's say we didn't want to go the loot table way. We wanted to simply create a bunch of swords, all the swords in the world. Here you can see the variable type. As you can see, currently it's a container, but it can be an array. If it's an array, you compile this to initialize, and you can see I can add array elements after array element after array. I can make this infinitely big. Not, of course, ideal in terms of probably working with it, because you're going to have to loop through the whole damn thing to find out anything you want. Of course, you're going to have to remember the array elements. Another way to do this would be using a set. Now, a set is is pretty cool. Let's just create, I'm going to make this into a regular container right now, and I'm going to use my name here as a container, and we're going to create a set. The reason I did this is because I'm going to compile here. Notice that I got set names. Now, if I click this, I can't spam this. I can't spam it because a set only has a very unique set of items. That's why it's called a set. So I can have, let's say, maybe this is something for an inventory. I want to manage this and maybe pass it on to an array, right? But I want to have unique stuff in my array. Let's say perhaps I want to have, I don't know, bandages, right? And then I need to add another one, and this would be, let's say, food, all sorts of different foods. And this would be, I don't know, ammo, okay? And just keep going and going and going. Eventually, just drag this all over, and you could use this for whatever, right? You can actually have some utilities. You can see, well, in this case, we don't need it, but it could perform some fairly interesting things. So set, and as you can see, we can set the name. Sorry, guys. And you can have adds, you can clear, differentiate, length, remove. By the way, the difference between these, you can see there's blue and green, is that this is pure. Well, okay, we're going to talk about pure and impure. We're going to talk about this in another video. The point is that you can do a lot of stuff with this kind of variable. Now, Another option would be to create a map, which is also known as a dictionary. We're going to change the variable type. For crying out loud, I'm going to have to delete everything now. And I'm going to change the variable type. I already did, didn't I? Okay, I did. So we got a string and we got an integer. Of course, it's kind of like, as you can see, it's kind of like they're linked together. So if I compile this and I add something, you're going to get a name and a key for the name. So this is the key and this is the value associated with the name. This could be an integer, could be a float, change the variable type, index. Okay, a long time. The editor may kind of, oh, for crying out loud. Yeah, let's go. Run without source control, and this should be kind of indexed, I believe. So as you can see, we now have a float, or you could have a text or a vector or transform or structures, really anything that floats your boat. You can have your weapons on one side, for example, your enumerator, which you don't really need in this case, by the way. I believe this custom structure will not be supported. Is that so? What was the items? Actually, yeah, we need items. Oh yeah, you can support change variable type. Come on, we're going to have to do the same thing all over again. I'm just going to delete this. Okay, as you can see, we currently have a string and items. Whatever we have set up in items, of course, we already have names for them. But let's just say I want to add some other stuff. Say, in this element, for example, items kind of are only a data type, so we need to add value to it. In this case, it would be something like, my first name would be weapons, and then you'd have like some kind of element, like maybe it will give a value of 5. Okay, weird thing is though, this kind of takes in, it doesn't give me a drop down of the items that I have, so it is kind of unfortunate. Maybe not the best example here, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Okay, let's just say this is a damage. Let's just say this is a damage table, and I'm going to say that swords deal 100 damage, and bows deal 55 damage, and spears deal 70 damage, etc., etc., etc. And then I can grab this, for example, in this case, my name, which should be actually called damage numbers. In other words, I could have replaced my damage variable here with a damage dictionary. I could get quite a lot of stuff. As you can see, it's currently been changed. Now, of course, I could have deleted that and have much better results, but I'm going to compile, and as you can see, we've got my elements, and I can perform other movements, such as map. You know, I can add stuff, grab keys, find keys, compare values, etc., etc., etc. There's loads of different things you can do with all of these types of variables. So as you can see, managing data, but that's, by the way, not the only way to manage data. There's more ways of which I'm simply not aware of since you know, I never had to use it. And there's quite a lot of versatility when it comes to data management, right? You've got your structures. By the way, if you wanted to create a loot table, you always need a structure for the corresponding loot table. You can't just grab one out of the blue. Let's take a look at what we have here again. Miscellaneous. Oh, we got a data asset. Now, a data asset, I believe, is the base class for any data combination. So a data table is a child of data asset. So if we create a data asset, yeah, it's going to ask us what kind of asset we want to have. I don't even know. Oh, okay. I never even knew that these things existed here. But let's just say this is a Blackboard. This is Blackboard data. It's for AI. So we could select that, and this would import it, and we'll create a Blackboard. Of course, it's possible to simply create a Blackboard on its own. As you can see, it's the exact same asset. Okay. I'm going to delete these. What else do we have here? Miscellaneous. I believe there's other ways to monitor data. Defines a curve. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, let's say a float. Oh wow, that's very nice. You can actually map a trajectory of a weapon or something here. Okay, so as you can see, yeah, loads of different data types. By the way, I do believe you could use the points. So sorry, like the data from the curve, and I think it's possible to use the data points from the curve and then work with them in the blueprint some way. I just never had to do it, honestly. It's kind of like an obscure thing. But of course, depending on what you're going to do, that's what you might, you know, approach, how you might approach your problem. Now, that being said, that is the end of this video and the end of the data type issues, really. From now on, whenever you need a particular data type, you need to create a variable, set its type. It could be something that has already been created, such as an actor. It could be something that you've created in terms of an enumerator. It could be something that you created, but provided for you by default. Loads of different data types, as you can see here, loads. Okay, it can even do it by reference or class reference. Now, there's a little bit of a difference here. I don't really know what this does actually. Soft. Oh, it can be load. It can be. Oh, you can. All right. All right. So this is an asynchronous type deal, and this is just regular. That's pretty cool. Generally speaking, you don't want to be referencing the class itself. Rarely will you need to reference the class itself. The object is basically the wrapper around the class anyway. So there's no point for that. But as you can see, there's quite a lot of possibilities when it comes to our game modes here. So I will simply start deleting these now because I really don't want them right now. Delete, delete, delete. Quite annoying. Just delete, 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 delete. Okay, great. Now that that's done, I'm just going to compile. Now that there's anything to compile and save, and I'm going to save the whole thing. Save current, file save all. And we are good to go. We have our world settings done here. We have an understanding of how data types work. We have some enumerators, some of this, some of that. And in the next video, we'll be talking about blueprint communication and flow control. And it's going to be quite a long video. Indeed. All right, guys. I'll see you next time. Play around with these data types, and bye-bye.